Good morning, everyone. It's kind of a late night for me anyway. Last night we went to see Stephen King and his son Owen King reading from their new book, it was random how the books that were signed. You know, they just only signed some and they pushed them into the stacks so that whether you got a signed one or an unsigned one was completely random. And I actually got one of the copies that were signed by both Stephen King and Owen, so it was a really good night. For our card of the day today, I didn't choose one card. I chose three. And the reason I chose these three are because these are the three cards where you will find three of the four angels or archangels of the elements. You have Raphael here. You have Gabriel here. And you have Michael here. The reason I picked these is because if you'll notice, the one thing that all of these cards have in common is the wings extend off of the page. The angel is not fully rendered. It goes beyond the borders of the cards. The reason for that, the message behind that, is that these practices, working with the angels, and the power of these angels is so incredibly, profoundly powerful that you can't even perceive the totality of it. It's too much for our minds to be able to wrap around. We can only grasp part of the energy, part of the concepts. It's such huge pockets of divine energy. That's what an angel is, pockets of divine energy that is so incredibly powerful that our conceptual intellect cannot get a handhold on it. It's beyond our realm of comprehension. And the reason I picked those is because it ties into something that someone had asked. Someone sent me a message and asked a question. They said, well, what do you say to like the fundamentalists in the South who always, I talked about the other day how they even say angels are satanic in the South. Working with angels is somehow demonic. Makes no sense. But they'll say things like, well, then why don't you just go straight to God instead of using the angels? Well, what that means is, first, they don't even understand what they're actually asking you when they ask you that. What they're asking you is, why don't you appeal to my concept of what divinity is instead of doing it the way you're doing it? Well, because it's just your concept. When people ask that question, the first thing to remember is they don't even know what God is. If they did, they wouldn't be asking you something like that. They would understand that the way they perceive God, divinity, is nothing more than an I can never say this word. It's the same thing that we do with the angels by picturing them as people with wings on their back. Anthropomorphification of God is what they're trying to do. And they picture it however they picture it. That's not what divinity is. Your picture of what divinity is may offer a doorway through which actual divinity can operate, can send influxes of power, of magical current. But your picture of what you think God is not what God, is not what divinity is limited to. When you're working with angels, you are working directly with divinity. For all intents and purposes, you are working directly with God, if that makes any sense. And the way to describe that is, imagine, going back to the fundamentalist concepts for a minute. They usually think of God as something like this. Closest thing you could come to articulating it is like an old man floating in the clouds, waiting to punish people for being gay or something. Think if that were actually true for a moment. What angelic energy would be one of that figure's, say Michael, would be that figure's right hand. Raphael would be that figure's left hand. Gabriel would be, that figure's, the back of that figure's head. They are all just aspects, like folds in a curtain of divinity. They are very much aspects of God. And even using that word doesn't make a lot of sense, the word God, because the word, everybody now just throws it around. Like in the Bible, there's just one word that means God, and that's not even, close to true. You have many, many words that all mean different things that were just lumped together into this category of God. For example, one of the words that was translated to God is Ehyeh, means I am. Other words that were translated to God were Shaddai El Kai and Yehovah Elohim. And speaking of that one, that one goes all the way back to the book of Genesis. The word God does not appear anywhere in the actual, real, original written versions of the Bible. It would be names, specific names. And I'll give you one example. In the book of Genesis, the word they translate to mean God would be Yehovah Elohim. Now, Yehovah is an impronounceable embodiment of divinity in Hebrew. When you see the letters YHVH, that's what it actually has no pronunciation. There's no way to say that. It was never meant to be said out loud. But we vibrate it as Yehovah because we're creating a picture for that energy to be able to flow through, to create an influx through. We're creating a circuit, a connection. Yehovah Elohim, YHVH, just means divinity. Elohim carries feminine qualities. It is not exactly a masculine word. It's actually not close to it. If you were to translate in the book of Genesis what that would actually say, it would be very hard to put it into English, and it definitely wouldn't be God because, number one, it's plural. Yehovah Elohim means more than one. It means many. It also means masculine and feminine. So technically, if you were to try to translate the book of Genesis and get as close to the actual original language as possible, it wouldn't say God. It would say gods and goddesses. So what we usually think of as fundamentalism, keep in mind that they're going off of concepts that are, number one, were written down about 300 years after the person who said them had died, for the most part. So they weren't even written by people who knew the people that the stories were about. Second off, they've been, edited and retranslated over a dozen times at least now. You may be even approaching 100 times at this point. So it's nothing like the original text, nothing like the original meaning. Now you can still go through it and find magic the way I do, but you have to really look for it now, because not only has it been changed, but you've had programs pushed in your head since the day you were born telling you how to read this. That's why most people can't even see the magic in it anymore. Most people can't even follow the basic instructions that Jesus gave. Going back to the mountain thing, Jesus didn't say beg God to move the mountain. Jesus said, say to the mountain, move, and the mountain will be moved. He didn't say, get on your knees and wheedle and ask me, or any of these things. But it's all been changed so that we don't even actually read what's there anymore. We read what we've been told is there. The more you do magic, the more you actually have first-hand experience with these concepts, not just on an intellectual level or a book level or a second-hand information level. The more you actually come face-to-face with these things and brush against them, the more that energy seeps into you and the more you're capable of understanding. No one is capable of completely and absolutely understanding, because we live in the material world, and divinity cannot completely change the structure of the material world without turning it entirely into divinity. It would no longer be the physical world. So there's only a certain amount, and it's a lot, it's a real lot, and it changes things, but there's only a certain amount of divinity that manifests all at one time in the physical world, or it would no longer be the physical world. Okay, guys, I've got a little extra time today, so I am going to start doing our new podcast, our new Magic Revolution podcast, and our new Inner Sanctum podcast today. I'm going to get to work on those. Hopefully, those will be finished before the day's out, and I will get them up as quickly as I possibly can. What I'm going to do first before we go, I was getting ready to go back inside and get to work, but first I'm going to insert these 3 cards at random places in the deck, and then we're just going to shuffle like this. And then we are going to open right in the middle of the deck and see what we get for our card of the day for you to translate. So this part right here. Bam. 6 of Pentacles. What does that mean to you? How do you translate that? And second off, 6 relates in one way or another to solar power, the sun, or to the Tippereth center in the middle of your chest. How do you see a connection there between the 6 of Pentacles and that energy center? The energy that energy represents. How? You know, try to describe that. Try to articulate that. Really think about it. Meditate on it. It may not be something that you see immediately. You may have to dig into it. Okay, guys, I will talk to you later. I hope you have a good morning, and see you in a few. Bye-bye.